Greetings, Glitter Gang, and happy Thursday. Today is Thursday, March 25th. This is going to be the last day that we work on the Pouch-A-Lope album from Scrappy Bowl. It is also book club day, and today we'll be discussing Erotic Stories for Punjabi Widows by Bali Kaur Jaswal. And whenever I am actively discussing the book versus giving crafting instructions, you'll see this pop up in the corner there. And that's just so that people who want to read the book but who haven't had a chance won't be spoiled for the discussion or anything like that. Or if there's any content you want to avoid, and I will give content warnings for this book, has discussions of arranged marriage as well as forced marriage as well as child brides, so the forced marriage of children, as well as like blackmail, honor killings, murders, all kinds of, there's a lot of very objectionable content in this book. The book is not, glamorizing or supporting this content. The book is, of course, against this content, but if you don't want to hear about that kind of content at all, it's in this book, so that's how you avoid it. So if you see this pop up and you don't want to hear about the book, just mute, and then when I'm working on the book and giving instructions again, I will take it down just like this, and you'll know it's good to go. So Kimberly says, I received my French curve and tape. Thanks, Kathryn. Yeah, we've now mailed all orders and all prices from Scrappy Bowl. They've all been sent out. So if you haven't gotten yours and you think you should have, just send an email to info@kathrynscraps.com. Okay, so hello, happy Thursday. If you see a chat from me that says happy Thursday all in caps in your chat window, and then that way, then you know you're in the right chat. I do know someone was in a cornfield earlier because my chat reloaded and it had all different people in it. So anyone who was in the chat before, I hadn't typed anything. So if you see type from me, you're in the chat that I see. But I originally, my chat had different people in it than the chat that I have now. So I know there is a cornfield going on right now. So unless you see a chat from me that says happy Thursday all in caps, you're in a cornfield. All right. So hello everyone. Hello to Gretchen. Oh, also remember that we have going on from now until like through April. We have the Glitter Party 2021, which is going on my Facebook group. And you can get an entry to win a Rototrim or a $200 gift card to the scrapbook store of your choice. If you don't want a Rototrim, or you already have a Rototrim, or if you live in a place where it'd be prohibitively expensive to ship a Rototrim. All right, so you can go to the Facebook group, which is facebook.com/group/Kathryn Scrappers, and it's always linked in the video description below as well. This is a recording from Kathryn Scraps Live if you're watching this on YouTube, which means I did this live, I was talking to people live, and you're just getting whatever happened. So these are recordings from live. If you want to see all the recordings from all the live shows, you can check the video description for how to get a membership to our archives, where we have thousands of videos like this. All right, so the way that I know this is going to be the last day that we're going to be working on the Pouch-A-Lope is because I'm going to start with the cover. So I'm going to do the binding, the cover, do all that, get it all bound, and then with whatever time we have left this afternoon and whatever time we have left tonight, we'll be working on the inserts for the pouches. So however many inserts we get done, that's how many inserts you're going to see. So so that's how it's going to go. So all right, the first thing is we already did the interior spine. We need to do the exterior spine as part of the cover. And I just want to figure out what size I want to make my covers, and I just forgot how big this thing even is. So it's like 7 3/4 by 5 3/4. Okay, so it's 7 3/4 by 5 3/4. So I think what we'll do is we'll make it 8. The chipboard will be 8 by 6 1/4, and then we'll have a 1/4 inch all the way around on the 3 sides. So 8 by 6 1/4. Is this big enough for me to get the covers out of it, this scrap? Yes, it is. So I'm going to go cut this into 2 pieces that are 8 inches wide by 6 1/4 inches long. All right, so we'll start there with me chopping some. Oh, it's not big enough if it's 6 1/4, because I can't get to 6 1/4 anything out of 12 ever. So just kidding, I'll have to find another scrap. All right, so there's piece number 1. Okay. And then neither of these scraps are big enough, so I can either cut down a piece of 8.5 by 11 or cut up a piece of 12 by 12. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a piece. So, all right. Of chipboard, because I don't want to cut a new sheet. So all I'm going to do is just stick 2 pieces of chipboard together and then cut it down. And when we go to wrap this in the paper, we'll just put adhesive on either side of this crack and it'll work just fine. All right, I'll be right back. So it's 8 by 6 1/4. And it's best for me if this crack is kind of in the middle. So I'm going to make sure the crack ends up in the middle. All right. It's Franken chipboard. Franken chip. All right. So let me move these. I didn't have to open a new piece of 12 by, or open a new pack of chipboard 8.5 by 11 or cut a new piece of 12 by 12. So, but I want this to be really strong. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 3/4 inch tape and I'm going to run it along the side or along the crack so that there's adhesive going across the crack, and that way it'll be stuck down really well to the paper, so I won't have to worry about it coming apart. Okay, so let me get okay, so now I have these 2. They are, once again, they are 8 by 6 1/4. So I'm gonna put it like this. So you see we have a 1/4 inch, a 1/4 inch, a 1/4 inch. That's what we want. All right, now, previously on another episode, I made these to cover these. So I just wanna like set them down and see if they're still looking good. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna lose a little bit of some of the detail, but it'll be fine. So I just need to cut these out, and I know I did this on camera at some point in this series. It was one of the first things I did. So if you want to know how to do this, just check the playlist. And I have the playlist linked down below in the video description of both the live and the description, or both the live and the recording of the live. So And I'm just cutting these out. All right, so I've cut my pieces out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip these over, and I'm going to draw a line 1 inch in from every edge, and that's going to just help me center my pieces. All right, and while I'm doing that, let me just say hi to everyone. So hello to Gretchen, who was the first to chat in this chat. So if Gretchen is the first person to chat in your chat, you're in the right chat. You're not in a cornfield. So hello to Gretchen. Happy Thursday to Kathryn. Happy Thursday to us all. Last week, when it was Thursday, I was like, finally. But this week felt like it went faster. So I think last week we were all just dealing with the daylight savings times blues. Even though supposedly it's only supposed to take a day for you to adjust to an hour's time difference, but I really felt like it took me a lot longer than a day. So hello to J.K. Lorna. Welcome to you. Glad you could join us. Barbara Jean says, it's Thursday. Ta-da! Yes, that's right. Excitement. It's Thursday. Excitement. And then we have Kimberly Brown says, hi, everyone. And Candy says, happy Thursday. Hooray, it's Glitter Day from Melanie. Yes, Glitter Day. Hooray. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put tape. I'm going to run a line of tape against this. Well, first let me make sure. Okay, so this is widthwise. Widthwise, the paper is correct. Lengthwise, the paper is not correct. It's not a big deal. I'm just going to run my line of tape along the pen line and along the edge, and then we'll start sticking stuff down. And then also going to put tape around my 2 pieces of chipboard. So I'm going to use 3/8 inch tape. All right. So Kathryn's excited to see this whole project come together. Me too. And then next week we'll be back to working on the what will we be back to working on? Someone tell me what on earth I will be back to working on. Oh, yeah, the box set. The box set album. That's what we'll be back to working on. So we'll be jumping into the middle of the French one, finishing it up, and then we'll do the salon one, which I'm kind of looking forward to the salon one. That's a different, you know, that's a different paper collection, and it's a fun one. So plus, I would like to be able to go to one again someday. Ooh, Donna, that sounds bad. All right, so who else we have? Judy says, I wonder if YouTube knows what we were planning on talking about, having all sorts of problems sending messages. As soon as I said forced marriage, YouTube was on us. The bot that does the captions was like, what? Are they talking about controversial topics? Okie dokie. So I'm going to use this bigger tape on these. And on this guy right here, I'm just going to peel the tape back a little bit. I did pick books for May book club, and you have April to vote on starting tomorrow. And one of the requests for May was to pick books I really liked that I read last year and Such a Fun Age. So it'll be Such a Fun Age and 2 books that at some point I've given 5 stars and then felt like they held up. So it's all over the place in terms of genre. I did put Such a Fun Age on there. I did not give Such a Fun Age 5 stars. So but that was part of the request, and I can talk about it, I think, at least semi-intelligently. So, and I didn't dislike it. It just, I just didn't think it was a 5-star book. But it is a good book, I think, so we can do that one. But I also am going to put Recursion on there by Blake Crouch. We can all read a physics thriller together. I recommended Dark Matter previously. I think Recursion is a little bit better, in my opinion, by the same author. And then, what's the other one? Oh, The Golem and the Genie, which I read for a different book club several years ago. Golem and the Genie is about, really about immigration in New York at the turn of the 19th century, is it the early 1800s or is it the late 1800s? It's somewhere, yeah, I think it's the late 1800s, to be honest. But it's about a golem and a genie who find themselves transported to New York City. And then they have to kind of figure out what they're going to do with themselves. And so they move into different immigrant communities. So like the golem moves in with some Syrians, Maronites specifically, and then not the golem. Did I say the golem moves in? No, the golem moves in with a Jewish community, and then the genie moves in with the Syrians. The jinn moves in with the Syrians. But it covers all classes of New York. It's very interesting. And, it just uses this sort of fabulous lens of, to be able to explore, the human condition. If you wonder what it is that I would always like in a book, not always, but like the kind of thing that I tend to like in a book is if a book uses some kind of fabulism, to be able to create a really specific set of scenarios where they can really drill down on some aspect of the human condition. Like in this case, the Golem and the Genie, it's going to be immigration to the United States 100 to 150 years ago, and what that was like for the people who did it. So that I find interesting. Recursion, that's a different story. That's just that's a thriller. So that's a thriller. With a physics twist. And then Such a Fun Age is just a modern, it's a contemporary novel. It's a contemporary fiction. All right. Okay, so those will be the May books you'll be choosing from. It's a mixed bag. So, and then April books, I already told you, are books about light-hearted comedies about books, I think, was the theme, or people who sell books, or so. Suppose it should be lighthearted next month. All right, so those will be your choices. All right, but you won't be making those choices for a month, so. But I'll let you know. All right, so now I've got everything prepped. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tool, I'm going to peel all my tape from my paper and from my chipboard. Okay. So, Sandra is back from vacation. Poor Sandra. She was in Hawaii. That must have been nice. The last... More lighthearted than the last 2 months. Yeah. Well, actually all year. Because it's not like Winter People wasn't a huge downer about really weirdly horrible people, right? So all the books so far this year have all been kind of bummers. Let's just about people who suck a lot, you know, like really bad. So that's been the theme so far in 2021. I'm not doing it on purpose, okay? And I take no responsibility whatsoever for March. That one is on Reese Witherspoon, all right? That's not even my fault, okay? That one is Reese Witherspoon's fault and you guys' fault. Although, I'm sure if we'd read the book about the band, they all would have turned out to be psychos too. So, what was the other book? It was a book about a band. This book, and what was the third book? Oh, Some Family That Won a Cruise. Some Family That Won a Cruise. Apparently we picked the wrong one. We should have gone with the Cruise family. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these corners, and I'm using the Perfect Trim tool, and I use the .0625 side. I find that the .0625 side, it works for most like standard chipboard, crafting chipboard. I still think Winter People is still the worst. I think, because Winter People had, in my opinion, it didn't really have any redeeming value. Like, there was no takeaway whatsoever from Winter People. Like, I didn't grow as a person in any way. I didn't gain any empathy. I didn't, you know, it did not in any way. There was no redeeming value in my opinion. So, okay. All right, so now what I've done, now that I've cut the corners, I'm going to use a bone folder. This is the first one I grabbed. It's not the one that I want. Okay, I'm going to use a bone folder. And what I do is I go underneath, I get under the edge, and I crease it up nice against the edge. and then I push it up against the side, and then I twist it and crease it down over, and then I'll press it down, and then I'll burnish. So, and then we'll just do that. I'm going to do that on both the long sides. All right. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is when you roll that over, it hangs over the edge a little bit. So what I do is I press my bone folder against the edge and I push down on my desk. So I'm pushing, it's like almost like a plowing motion. So I'm pushing down on my desk next to this, and then I twist it. And what that does is that tucks that little piece over. And I'm going to do that on all four corners. Tuck your little corners, and then none of that chipboard will show. It'll just look super professional. All right. So once I've done that, now I can fold up the two short sides. And I fold the two short sides up in the same exact way that I do the long sides. They're just kind of going over those little tucked in corners. Okay. And then here we go. So yeah, we still have a lot of the image. It looks beautiful. All right, so I'm going to burnish this. And we have a nice, it's nice and firm. Like you can see that there's a little bit of a bend from the crack, but it's really not much more than just chipboard itself would bend. So it's in pretty good shape. Once we have another piece of paper bracing this side, and in fact, let me put down over this crack, let me put down 2-inch tape so that it goes beyond the tape that's on here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the book a little bit while I just kind of whip through the second one. But I do want to say that this week we will probably talk about the book more tonight, because I think tonight we'll be making, like, I'll be showing you an insert and then we'll be making 5 of them or something like that to go in all the pockets. So tonight there'll be a lot more repetition. So I think we'll be doing more book discussion tonight. Normally, we usually, by the time we're done in the afternoon, we're kind of like, okay, we talked about it, we're good. But I think this afternoon, there's going to be more, like, explaining of steps. All right, but I'm going to just whip this one together, and then I'm going to talk, at least give a summary of the book, hopefully, so we're all on the same page. So I'm going to put up the image, and there we go. All right, so this book is Erotic Stories for Punjabi Widows, and the description of the book makes it sound a lot more lighthearted than the book itself is, for sure. And I will say, I think I have given this book a 3 right now. That's unlikely to rise. I don't think I will go above a 3 on this book. And I think it's because while I do think a lot of the topics discussed in this book are really important and deserve reflection and discussion, I think that the book itself is not really a success either technically or artistically. I think it has a lot of flaws, you know, just as a book. And I think, so that makes it something that I wouldn't widely recommend. I wouldn't say, oh my gosh, it's amazing, everyone should read it, even though it's tough material. Like, you can still get a lot out of, you can get so much out of it. It just was not that for me. And I think the reason why is there are too many things happening in this book. This book has plot fatigue. This book has messaging fatigue. This book has character fatigue. Like, there's too many plots. There's too many characters. There's too many messages. Like, it's just too much. The book is really wide, really broad, encompasses so many things, and it's like this deep. And that to me is the biggest flaw, is that there's just not, I didn't feel like anything was addressed the way it needed to be addressed and deserved to be addressed. So like, there were so many characters, I just didn't even, like, I couldn't keep anyone straight. I didn't know who was who. No one, not no one, but very few characters had voices that were very easy for me to distinguish. And so I just kind of thought of them as like the mom and the daughter-in-law, like, you know, that sort of thing. Aside from Nikki, the main character, and her sister Mandy, and then there's Kulwinder, who was the boss lady, and then the lady whose name started with a T, the villain. Oh, what was her name? Tarampal, that was her name. Like, you could have had an entire book that was just about the conflict between Tarampal and Kulwinder. Okay, so like just that storyline would have has enough in it to explore, to that have just been the whole book. The whole book could have just been what happened between them, Kulwinder's daughter, the nephew, because there's an exploration to have with Tarampal where it's like she was forced into a marriage when she was 10 to a man who was like 30 years older than she was, something like that. That was a forced marriage, not an arranged marriage, and that was abusive. And then she grows up into this villain, but it's like, what was she supposed to grow up into? Like, her only choices are die or participate in this malevolent patriarchy. So she doesn't want to die, you know, so she doesn't, like, it's like the book, like, at what point was she, I don't know. I mean, yes, she does do bad things. I'm not trying to justify what she does. My question is, what else could she have done? Like, she was 10 when she was put in this circumstance. So I felt like maybe the book was too tough on her. I mean, she did participate in a murder, an honor killing. So, you know, at least on some level, whether if it was not in the moment, at least after the fact. And she benefited from the suffering of other people in a system that her husband started and she perpetuated. You know, but I don't know if I thought, well, I don't know. What did you think? Did you think the book really thought she was just a villain? Or did you think the book thought she was a complex character? Or what did you think? Because I think she should have been a more complex character than she was. I felt like there was an opportunity for her to be, to have been more complex and more interesting. Instead, she just felt like a Scooby-Doo villain to me. But maybe that was just me, like, being overwhelmed by how many people were in the book. There's a question about crafting. I'm going to take this down. Okay, so I just took this down and because I have the question is, would it work as well if you trim the corners of this paper before it's applied to the chipboard? I presume this means, like, you know, could I make an SVG of this shape and then have that cover like have that ready to go to cover the chipboard? You could. There's a couple of reasons why maybe I wouldn't. One is you then have to trim the tape to the shape. That's not like the end of the world, but you do have to do that. And then the other one is when you cut your chipboard, or at least when I cut my chipboard, I don't always cut it exactly like, you know, to exactly 8 inches. Like sometimes it's going to be like 7 and 59/60 inches. And sometimes it's going to be 8 and 1/37 inches. And so if I don't cut this, if I don't miter these corners to my chipboards, maybe sometimes there's not enough paper to wrap, would be your concern. Or if I don't put my chipboard exactly perfectly right in the middle, then there's not enough paper to wrap. So, you know, so I think, yes, you could, but you might run into problems. There's a potential to run into problems. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to put the book club book back up. Yeah, I don't think the book thought that I don't think the author wanted her to be a complete villain because she took the time to talk about all the abuses that she'd suffered. But for me, it didn't come through in the characterization. In other words, I didn't feel that. Like I felt like I was told that, you know, like the author told me all this happened, but like I wasn't shown any kind of internal struggle or anything. Okay, so Mary just said, what did Nikki's boyfriend add to anything? Nothing. He should have been cut completely. Other people who should have been cut, everyone who worked in that restaurant, the boss, the guy who was kind of hot for her, the Russians or whoever that were always like being jerks. None of that mattered. None of that mattered. That didn't add anything. And then, yeah. So, okay, yeah. Nikki's whole, first, because I'm so distracted, I'm already annoyed. So, because I'm already annoyed, I'm doing the short sides. It doesn't matter. Just, you have to do the same sides, either both long sides or both short sides. It doesn't matter which sides you do, really. I like to do the long sides, but it doesn't matter as long as they're the same. Okay, so now I'm going to go and tuck the corners. Anyway, so what the book is about, the book is about so many things, but what you can really say if you want to broadly speak is the book is about the struggles that a group of women of Sikh extraction or Punjabi extraction face while living in the South Hall community of London, which my interpretation of that community from the book is that it is mostly Sikh and mostly Punjabi. But there is a ton going on in the book. So the book is trying to tackle different types of immigrants. So like people who just came over, people whose parents came over, you know, to the UK. So, and the conflicts between them. Okay, so you have like the conflict between Nikki and Kulwinder about how Nikki doesn't speak Punjabi very well, Kulwinder doesn't speak English very well, and they have this whole miscommunication over the class, and Kulwinder thinks that Nikki is going to teach them how to read and write, and Nikki thinks she's supposed to be collecting stories from their culture to make like a cultural history of these women's lives. And she's teaching them to write, not as in how you write your ABCs, but how to improve your writing style, the quality of your writing. And so that's right off the bat, we have this miscommunication. Okay. And then, and I think that could have just been enough. We didn't have to add the erotic stories angle, because they could have just told stories. Some of them could have been erotic. Some of them could have been not erotic. Like, why we had to also add this layer of Nikki going shopping, finding the erotic story to joke with her sister about it so that she could then leave it on the floor of the classroom so that they could then find it and then decide that that's the kind of stories they want to tell. All of that was so, we didn't need it. It didn't need to happen. And you could have cut all of that, and the author still could have told the stories about these women's lives that she wanted to tell, in my opinion. I think she could have. So I think that whole thing was just probably, like, one of the stories could have been erotic. One of the stories could have touched on how, as a society, we think that once women aren't 22 anymore, then they're not sexual beings, and they don't have wants and desires and needs, and that once you're a widow, you never have any urges again. Any of that, like, all of that could have been addressed by just having one of the women write an erotic story, for example. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. This book had a really long waiting list at my library too, Ellen. So like Ellen said, there was a 12-week waiting list for that book at her library. Mine was down to the wire. I got it 2 days ago. So like really down to the wire. Yeah, so like Gretchen says, the women finding their voices, becoming empowered, and understanding they were lonely, what needs they had, that was all good, but the stories didn't actually have to be in the book. Absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, in other words, that was none of, like, I was talking about this to someone yesterday, I think, and I said, yeah, it just has too many erotic stories. Like, I mean, that they just take up page time. They've been devoted to drilling down on some issues and adding some depth to some characters and some depth to some messages and some depth to the plots. So, because like every single story just takes away, you know, I mean, there are messages in some of the stories. I don't want to say that there's not, okay? But like, for the most part, the stories are not adding to like the degree that they're taking away. Like there's a net negative, I think, to the stories in terms of what they add versus what they take away. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna we're gonna table this, but like this just proves that the bad books have the better discussions. Well, we had a good discussion last month too. So that's not the really excellent books and the really bad books. It's the medium books that are the problem. Okay. Let me go and I'm going to take this down and we're going to work on the spine. Okay, so I have done the covers. So we've got the front cover and then the back cover, and I'll just look at, you know, do I think that one of them looks nicer than the other? Not really. I mean, they're darn close to identical. So I think we'll just go randomly. So, and again, I made this in Photoshop by manipulating elements from the collections, from the digital collection. So, and there is a video previously in the playlist. Playlist is linked down below for both the live version. So if you're watching live now, the playlist is linked in the video description. You may have to toggle between the chat and the description to see it, or if you're watching the recording, playlist is down there as well. Okay, so now that we have the cover, we need to make our decorative spine. So this is our structural spine, and if we were to attach it to this without making a decorative spine, it would look like this. And it's actually not bad, but it's not very nice either. We can do a little bit better. So what we need to do is we need to make kind of like a little shell for it. And we do that with pattern paper. Now, the way you know what size to make it is your decorative spine is always going to be the same length as your cover. In this case, 6 1/4 inches. And then it's the width, this, okay, plus 1/4 inch, or you can think of it as from here to here plus 2 1/4 inches. Okay, so you can either go you know, it's going to be the same amount either way. So in this case it's 5 3/4, so we need a 6-inch spine basically. Well, that's handy. All right. So 5 3/4 or 6 inches by 6 1/4 inches. And we just want pattern paper that's gonna look cute with our cover, you know. And I think this might be a good place to use this. Oh, well, this is the back of this. So, yeah. Let's do this. It'll be fun. So, if this is 6 1/4 inches, this piece, then I can use it by cutting it in half. It's 6 1/2 inches, so I can use it by cutting it in half. Because I need to be 6 by 6 1/4. All right. Now, if you want to, you can reinforce this. I'm going to use this piece as my liner for the inside because it has to look good with this and it has to look good with this. So I think something kind of on the simpler side. And I need a piece, this piece is the same size as this piece. Okay, so this is 7 3/4 by 5 3/4, so we need to cut this to 7 3/4 by 5 3/4, which means I have to, I can cut it to 7 3/4 and then do 5 3/4, 5 3/4. And actually, that's fine. That's fine. All right. Okay, so we've got, these are the liners of the covers once we've got it all together. And then these, if you want to make these stronger, you can line them with Tyvek. And I have black Tyvek, that's what I'm going to use, so that it'll be black on the interior and that'll give it a nice look. But you can also sandwich the Tyvek between two pieces of paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a piece of Tyvek. Actually, I don't need 2 spines. Why did I cut 2 spines? That's weird. I only have 1 book. Let's pick the one that's cuter. I like this one better. All right, you only need 1 of these. Is this piece of Tyvek big enough? No. Well, can we do it in like 2 pieces? No. No, we can't. Okay. Well, yeah, we can. All right. Is this book going to be finished today? The cover will be finished this morning. Like the cover, spine, all of that will be finished today. Yes. Okay. I'm going to use Perfect Paper Adhesive Matte, which is what I prefer for Tyvek. And when I'm gluing Tyvek to paper, because it's more flexible. And I want my spine to be flexible. That's what I want. And I'm going to put it like a little off the edge. And then I'm going to burnish with my bone folder from the middle to the edges. I'm going to get messy doing this. Okay. That's normal. This is a very messy glue because the way that it's designed to work is to create a sheet of acrylic between two things to laminate them together. I'm just going to get underneath and peel it up. I'm going to clean my nonstick mat here, flip it over, and tidy up the edges. Okay, then I'm just with scissors gonna trim this down a little bit, and then I'm gonna stick this, you know, just right here to finish it off. That way both edges on the top and on the bottom will have Tyvek reinforcing them. And you can see that it doesn't go all the way to the edge. You can see, well, that doesn't matter because that part is stuck to the chipboard cover, so it doesn't need to have this reinforcement because it's protected in a way that the outside spine shell is not. Okay, now this I'm going to go set aside. I actually threw it on the floor and threw one of those packs of chipboard on top of it to dry while I work on some other parts of it, so it has as much time to dry as I can give it. Ugh. Okay. All right. Dun 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 dun. Okie dokie. So now it's time to glue these to these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a line of tape along the top of each fin on both sides. Then I'm going to run a line of tape along the edges of these so that I can stick everyone down. So that's going to take me a while, so I'll put the book discussion back up. Okay, so hold on a second. Sorry about that. Let me take it down again. Okay, so I'm going to do one just to show you before I go into like chit-chatting. So I'm going to put one tape. It's going to go along the top of the fin on both sides. So there and there. Okay, but the first flap is how it gets attached to the book. And so we put the tape on the back of this one, along the score line and along the edge. And then it's going to be the same thing on that one when we get to it. And then with these, okay, the tape goes on this edge of the pouches, and on the envelopes, it goes on this edge of the envelopes because they go front to back. So on the pouches, it's on the left. On the envelopes, it's on what would be the, you know, behind the right. Okay, so you just need to do the pouches and the envelopes. They're opposite each other. So pouches, it's under this side. And then envelopes, it's under this side. Okay. All right, so then once you have that on one of them, and it can be either the envelope or the pouch, I'm going to do the envelope, you need to go all the way around. Because again, they're sticking to each other. Doesn't matter which one you do all the way around. You just have to do one of them all the way around. Okay. All right. Now, burnish all your tape. So, burnish this tape. Burnish this tape. And then peel the tape from the back. And then peel all the tape from your envelope. All right, and then you're gonna stick it down, and you're gonna stick it down like so. And just make sure, like always, you leave breathing room between the edge of the element and the score line, so you have plenty of space to like move. Then peel the tape from the other side. Peel this line of tape, and then we are sticking it down like so. And with this one, I'm gonna line it up with the envelope. It's more important for me to line this up with the envelope as best I can than it is to line it up with the score line. And now I'm gonna burnish. Okay, and see here, I have a little scooch of tape showing. The way I can get rid of that is I can just cut it. So I'm just gonna lightly run my blade along that tape, and then I can peel it up. And then it won't matter. But this is why in the beginning I said if you wait until it's in to line it, you know, you might have a better result. Yes, this is the Ladies Who Lunch paper by Paper Phenomenon. And I am Kathryn from Kathryn, and this is Kathryn Scraps Live. And the Pouch-A-Lope is the name of the project. Okay, so that's how it all comes together. All right, so now you've got on the front of your page, you've got your pouch. Okay, on the back of your page, you've got your envelope. And there's your project. That's the Pouch-A-Lope. That's the Pouch-A-Lope, okay? All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put up the book club book, and we'll talk about the book some more while I just do the same thing and attach all of the other ones, which is gonna take me a minute. And while I'm doing that, the spine, the decorative spine is drying. As soon as I'm done putting it all together, or adding all the pages, we'll add this to the decorative spine to the cover. All right, and then that'll finish this whole, it'll be totally assembled and ready to go by the end of today's show. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna add all the pages now. Okay. So I'm just gonna go through and run my tape across the fronts, and then I'm gonna flip it over and run my tape across the backs. And then we'll attach everything. All right, so yeah, so I don't know how to talk about the plot of the book because there were so many plots, but let's blaze through a few of them. So one really big theme is matchmaking versus arranged marriage versus forced marriage. So you have Nikki's sister Mindy is engaged in matchmaking. Like, she's working with matchmakers and other similar services to find a husband because she wants to get married, and she thinks that, you know, she has just as much chance of finding someone, you know, through that process as she does finding someone on Tinder. So, you know, so that's what she's going to go with. And so, you know, she tries various different services throughout the book, but it's very clear that, that she's in complete control of the process the whole time. You know, that she is engaging in this voluntarily. In fact, it was her idea. Her mom is not even involved at all. And so she is literally just getting someone to help her with matchmaking. Then you have people who families arranged their marriages, but they didn't feel forced into it. They wanted to do it, and who have good marriages, like Colwinder and her husband would be an example of that. You know, she didn't feel forced. He didn't feel forced. Also, the woman, the poetry with the poetry, the poet husband, that's another example. And then you have the extreme end, which is the girl whose father kills her because she won't go to India and participate in a forced marriage. And then you have the oh, what the heck is her name? Why can't I remember her name? Tarampal, who was in a forced marriage from the age of 10. All right, so now I'm going to just burnish these. And the author is, I think, trying to present the whole thing very fairly. And I think this is one of the areas where she succeeds at what she's trying to do better than some of the other areas, which is in showing that, you know, the people who say you can't say arranged marriage, it's always forced marriage because of societal pressure, that those people might be too extreme on the one end, you know, but the people that say that it's not oppressive, that it's just, you know, a nice way for your parents to help you find someone that you'll be really compatible with, and that, you know, it's not oppressive in any way, those people are also wrong. So I think that the author is saying it's a spectrum from very oppressive to not oppressive at all, and marriages fall anywhere on it. And so, like, an example would be Colwinder thinks that she's arranging a marriage for Maya, but that's actually, in my opinion, that seems more like a forced marriage. And the reason why is because she gives her the option of the marriage, like she doesn't have to do it, but if she doesn't do it, then they're going to cut off all contact with her and kick her out of the family. That's not exactly an option, right? She doesn't have an actual option. Okay, so I'm going to go through and add the tape to these now. So Maya is your daughter's name. And so what happens is Maya doesn't want to lose contact with her mother. So she does what her mother says, what her mother wants. And she has a miserable marriage and ends up murdered. So I think that's a pretty clear indictment of the system if you're going about it in the way that Colwinder and Tarampal's families are going about it. But there are plenty of other people who have really successful marriages and are really grateful for the process. And so, yeah, like you said, you have this spectrum. So, and I think, you know, yeah, she's not murdered because of, well, she's murdered because of she wants to leave her husband and he doesn't want to be humiliated. Right. She was going to expose that her husband was having an affair with his aunt. And so she was going to leave him and tell everyone, excuse me. And so that's why he kills her. Yeah. But, so her parents did not make a great choice there. Now, can her parents know what's going on in the minds of everyone? No. So I think that's why it's not shown as a perfect system, because it's not a perfect system. That's the author's point, I believe, is that it can be great. It can be so-so. You know, there are people who had so-so experiences. And then there's people who had so-so experiences, and then there are people who had really bad experiences. So it's like, again, you know, that it's not an easy answer. So I appreciate that complexity in the book, that the author wasn't like, this is always bad or this is always good, because very few things, you know, are totally simple. No, I don't think it's his blood aunt. I think it's his uncle's wife. Because I think he might even be the same age or possibly younger than her. Like, I don't even think, or the same age or older than her. They're very close in age. I thought they're, because she's only 30, right? Like, she's not even that old. Oops. Did I put this on the wrong side? Yes. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, I think she's so young. So I think that's they can't possibly be related in the biologically. So what happens is Colwinder is her daughter. The story that the Tarampal and her nephew tell is that her daughter burned herself alive because she didn't want to embarrass the family. And so, because she was having an affair, and that was her way of atoning. And the mother, who is Colwinder, she doesn't believe that, but she doesn't have any proof that that's not what happened, and no one in the community wants the police involved, and then when the police do get involved, they decide that story works as well as another, which I find difficult to believe that you could wrap up something like that so simply, but whatever. Then, the way that it's resolved again with the police, I also found difficult to believe, which was that the handwriting is smeared on this application form in the same way it was on the suicide note. Ergo, the same person wrote them. Ergo, it can't be suicide. I was just like, I don't see the police putting someone in jail for life or whatever over with that evidence. That doesn't seem like enough evidence. I don't know. That whole thing was just, yeah. I don't know that I bought that resolution at all. But maybe that's just, maybe that is enough to put people in jail, which is concerning. That's another thing to be concerned about. So yeah, that whole thing, the way it wrapped up at the end, the way everything wrapped up at the end was also, for me, was just too much. Because it was just like, here's 30 plot threads we introduced, and then it was like, oh, here's all the resolutions of the 30 plot threads. Boom, 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 boom. And I was like, what? What? Oh, okay, I guess we're done. I was like, oh, we're done. Book's over. Like, it just was like, whoosh, right at the end. So, I was like, all right, I guess. Wow, all right. Cool, cool, cool. Okay. I mean, like, the whole, like, Colwinder running into the burning building or whatever. Oh, my goodness. Like, everyone seeing the light on, and then all rushing over to her apartment to save her from getting killed by them. It was not I don't know if I believe how it all wrapped up. There were aspects of the Winter People that were more that made more sense, even when I thought it was aliens that were doing it. Okay. Oh, the whole boyfriend thing with his arranged marriage not working out and all of that. Like, I didn't need to know anything about the boyfriend. The boyfriend was not a compelling character. He was not interesting to me. I didn't care. I mean, like, she didn't need a boyfriend. She had enough going on. Like, there was enough going on in the book that she didn't need a boyfriend. So, all right. Okay, so now we can stick everything together. So what... It's true that you cannot judge a book by its cover, for sure. Well, that and like, yeah, the blurbs on the back, and even what people say about the books, because, you know, there are some, like I said, there are some really good messages in the book, but there's not enough time for them to breathe. Really, ultimately, a lot of it comes down to that for me. When we talk about, you know, what worked and what didn't work, you know, it was just too much at all times. So, but yeah, and meanwhile, Jet Setters, which the back of the book said is about people like winning a cruise. Everyone who read Jet Setters and Erotic Stories for Punjabi Widows says that Jet Setters is deeper. So it's just very, like, you just cannot tell. Yeah, you can't rely on reviewers now either. I mean, it's not like I don't try. You know what I mean? So every month on Facebook, when we do the poll, I always vote for 2 books. You can vote for more than one thing, by the way, in that poll. And I always pick the book I don't want to read, and then I vote for the other books. And so Jet Setters was the one I didn't vote for because it seemed like the least interesting to me. But apparently I was wrong. It was the best one, says everyone who read all of them, I guess. So, Mary says, me too. It's the reason I do it that way is it's like ranked choice voting. Yeah, that way I'm casting a vote for my first choice and my second choice so that, you know, both of those get a boost, and then the one that I don't want to read doesn't get a boost. All right. So... do you get sleepy when you try to read? Okay, halfway through. So, yeah, I was disappointed by the book because I saw the potential for some really cool things within it if it had been better edited. You know, I think that's really what it needed, was someone to come through and say, there's too much going on. There's too many characters. We don't need all the stories written out. Like, honestly, the stories could have just been like a paragraph at the beginning of each chapter. And I would have been fine. Like a paragraph of the story to lead into the chapter to set the theme of the chapter. I would have preferred something like that. What I would have been totally fine with is a structure where each chapter followed a particular widow's story and what she needed out of life and wasn't getting out of life and wasn't getting from her community, or a struggle she had overcome or whatever. And if like her story started with a paragraph from her story that set the tone for an exploration of that, that would have been, I would have liked that more. I think that could have been cool. Is pattern paper heavy enough to be spine fins? Yeah, it would depend on the pattern paper, but sometimes with a really heavy album like this one, I'll actually add a strip of Tyvek to the outside of this. And so I would say some pattern paper is, but you can, if you're worried about tearing, you can always add Tyvek to the outside of your spine. Okay. Well, Casey and a lot of the people in this book club listen to audiobooks from their library. Yeah, Gretchen, especially if it's double-sided and screen printed, what you can have happen is when it cracks, the screen printing can just peel off, and so you get that white showing through. All right, so best place to get Tyvek if you want a good amount, like, and money's not a problem, is you can get the rolls from Uline. That's the best, like, price per foot, you know. But also, some paper companies are selling it now. Like, I think Jam Paper sells it in colors now too. So some paper companies sell it. And you can find, I'm pretty sure Jam Paper, I think they have it. Maybe Best Creations has it. And you can sometimes buy sheets of the white at office supply stores. But if you only want to buy it one time and you don't mind paying a bunch up front, you can just get a roll from Uline is probably the best to get a roll from Uline. All right, last one. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's what could have made it better. You know, just and trying to tell fewer stories. Like the other thing that I don't think we needed necessarily was the intrigue of the brothers and all of them, you know, I don't know that again, I mean, I guess it was a way of showing that these women still have to deal with oppression, even though they're, you know, in the United Kingdom where they should be more equal. And I don't want to gloss over that. You know, I do think that that is an important message of the book, but we also spent a lot of time on these brothers and whether or not they were vandalizing things and burning things up and like all this stuff. So, I mean, that was a lot too. That was a lot too. I don't know. There's just so much going on. There was just so much going on. Like, would it make a great TV miniseries or TV series to have a class like this and like a soap opera? Yeah, that would be cool. Okay, so here we go. Let me just take this down. All right. So now I've got my envelopes on my spine. So if you're worried about whether or not your spine's going to hold up over time, you can put a strip of Tyvek, you know, across the middle here to reinforce it so that if it does start to tear, it won't tear all the way through. It'll just tear up to the Tyvek and then stop, if that's something you're worried about. All right, now let me go get my spine. Okay, my spine is still very wet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim it and then just kind of let it sit out. You know, since it's been under something, it's drying more slowly. Okay. So I'm just using a ruler and a craft knife. And what I'm trimming off of the spine is Tyvek that I stuck to the spine. I heard there was some drama with Cricut where they were going to start charging you extra for designs, and then everyone got so furious that they changed their mind and didn't do it. So good job, everyone, for getting them to reverse that decision. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ink these and cover them with tape. I'm going to ink them with the pumice stone ink. I think the main thing that we learned from book club this month is that we can't trust Reese Witherspoon. That she can't be trusted. All right, so on the 6 1/4 inch side, so this is the 6 1/4 inch side, so I'm going to ink here and here. So, because that's the 6 inch side, that's the top, right? Yeah, the 6 inch side is the top. So this is the 6 inch side, so I'm going to ink it. Should we all send Reese a message? Yeah, go on her Facebook and say, we read your book club book from 2018 and we were not impressed. So we had better luck the year that the month that I did book of the month's book club picks. What I think people like that month better. So we might do them again. I looked at Oprah's book club, but I feel like all those books are so famous. If you haven't like already read them, you probably don't want to, I guess. Like, cause when I looked at the Oprah book club picks, I was like, oh my gosh, these are all like the market saturation for these books is intense, which is not to say that they're not good, just that I feel like people probably are already there. So, poor Reese. Okay. So on the 6-inch side, okay, so again, this is from here to here is 6 inches. And then from here to here is 6 1/4. When it's almost square, it's very annoying. So this from here to here is 6 1/4. So I'm going to come an inch in from this one. All right. And draw very lightly with a pencil. And then flip it around and come an inch in on the opposite side as well. And this pencil line just needs to be dark enough for you to see it. You can't erase it once it's on there. So, all right, then add your tape. So add tape right next to the line and on the edge of your paper. All right. Okay. Now that we've got that tape on there, we're just gonna burnish really well, and then we're gonna attach our cover like so. Okay, so the cover goes right there. All right, so I'm gonna use my pick. They're in the archives, Kimberly, in the folder with the download from Scrappy Bowl and all the live recordings. Okay, so I'm going to burnish, 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 burnish really well. Flip it around. So yeah, if you're looking for the SVGs that Barbara Jean made for the Pouch-A-Lope, they're in the Pouch-A-Lope folder in the YouTube archives with the digital download. All right, so now that I've peeled the tape on that, I'm going to get a ruler and I'm going to bump a ruler up against this side. I want my covers to be even with each other when I stick them down. So I'm pulling, I've got my fingers on this and I'm pulling it towards my thumb so that it's pressed tightly against the ruler. And when I put this down, all right. Burnish, 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 burnish. Burnish, 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 burnish. Now, when I stuck this first one down, I was a little bit crooked. So what all that means, it's not a big deal, is that this is a little bit poking out the bottom here. So what I want to do is I just want to line a ruler up with my two cover pieces because I know my cover pieces are even. And I'm just going to trim this a little bit. So that it's all good. All right, and I'm gonna trim it by hand. All right. You don't have to do that, but you know, if it's bugging you, do it. And then just re-ink it. And no one will even notice that it's maybe a little wobbly down there. All right. You don't have to trim the top because the top is just short on one side versus the other. Okay. So what I just did there is what I'll do, I'll show you it here. I'm going to use, say this ruler is my desk. I just press this down like so until this edge and this edge are on the desk. So here, more like this. And then I just kind of wiggle it back and forth to do a little creasing of my spine. So my spine is the size and shape, its ultimate size and shape that it's going to be. All right, and now it's time to add this spine. Okay, so the way that I'm going to add this spine is it gets lined up with this. All right, so what I want to do, because look, this is, the black is showing a little bit. I need to add like a half inch of paper to the top and bottom to cover that black, because I don't want it to show from when it's laying out flat. I don't want to see that. So that's okay. I'm just going to use this and put it here and here. And I'm just going to cut 3/4 of an inch. And, you know, you can sandwich the Tyvek between 2 sheets of paper and have it go all the way down. That's cool, too. So I'm just going to ink what I know is the top and I'll ink the top and the sides, and then I'm going to use Scotch Quick Dry to glue this to the Tyvek. And with the Scotch Quick Dry, it'll be easier for me if I put the glue on the Tyvek. All right. Not much of this is going to be shown. It's more, I just don't want it to wrinkle, so I want to make sure it's pressed down really well. So that's why I kind of start up here where it's flat and then burnish down and then go side to side. All right. Then we're going to do the same thing down here on the bottom. I'm going to ink the sides and the bottom this time and stick this down. Has anyone heard of, is it berry ink? Berry glue? I saw an ad for it the other day. And they, in their ad, were taking a jab at art glitter glue because they said something like, you can ship our glue all year. So, I don't know, has anyone used it? Or even heard of it? Should I get some? Should we do a tape or glue showdown? Is there a good alternative to perfect paper adhesive? Yeah. So you don't have to use perfect perfect paper adhesive. You can use Scotch Quick Dry or something like that. The reason I like perfect paper adhesive is because it's so much more flexible. So you get a much better, smoother spine with the perfect paper adhesive. This, I think I'm about to lose this nail. If it happens, don't panic. It's not my actual nail. So like, I'm not injured if it disappears suddenly. So this is really flexible. That's what I like about it. That's why I like it specifically for the spines, because it's so much more flexible when it dries. Scotch Quick Dry is flexible when it dries, but it's not nearly as flexible as this. And then I assume Designer Dries Clear is about like this one versus like this one. I do recommend you have a bottle of perfect paper adhesive, but because it does have some great uses. It's great for covers too. All right, so now that I've got my little mask, okay, so Deb says it works just as good as the art glitter glue. You can buy it all year, and I like the tips better. That's, I'm sure, the berry adhesive. I'll order some. We'll have a glue showdown. Why not? We can have a glue showdown. All right, so I'm going to peel the tape from the flap here. Okay. And the way we stick this down is we're just going to line this up, centered top to bottom. We line it up with the spine. All right, that's why it's so important to do your spine, you know, 1.25 inches bigger than from here to here. Okay, so from here to here plus 2.25 inches is your spine. So from here to here plus 2.25 inches. The reason why is because that you get 1 inch glued to each cover, and then you have 1/4 inch worth of give so it can curve around this without causing any friction. Then what I recommend doing is prop this up against your chest. Okay, so right now I have the book resting on my chest so that I can pull this to here and glue it down. Okay. All right, and then once that's in place, burnish it well. Okay. And then your book is essentially done, okay? So sometimes I like to then just do that, rubbing it, pushing it into my desk thing again. All right. But the book is functional now, see? Ta-da! So all we have to do now is line the front back cover. That's what this is for. So we're going to put that down there to cover all of our, you know, all of our joints where everything is joining together. So I'm going to use the 2-inch tape for this. So I know everything is well stuck down. And then when we come back tonight, we'll be doing inserts. But I'm really happy with how this book turned out. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to burnish the tape now. Okay. And I already inked them. So we can just stick it down. Straight away. Don't have to do anything else to it. And then when I stick it down, I want it, you know, just short of this edge, this score line, because I don't want it to interfere with that score line at all. All right. And then I can just burnish it into place. All right. And then we just flip it around to the back and do the same thing. So I just need to pull this tape up. Remember, this is the tape that's holding the two pieces of our cover together. And it's the same thing. Oops. You don't want to be touching the score line. Okay. All right, so I'm going to start and pushing towards this where my spine is and then burnishing it. So you see I get that little lip. You may recognize that from hardback books. They have that little lip on the inside, some of them. That's just how books are made. Again, give it another little rocket, and there we have it. Okay, so you can see that we still have a pretty narrow mouth here. So the mouth is closed. So like if it's an alligator, the alligator is grinding its teeth. So that means that we can stuff a bunch of stuff in here. So there's still, with as much stuff as we've already put in it, we can still put some additional things in it. All right, so what I'm gonna do is flip through it. Let's flip through it. Now that it's a book, let's give it a flip. Let's give it a little flippy flap. Right, and again, I'm gonna be working on this again tonight, but you know, we're gonna think of some inserts that can go in the pouches, okay? But so here's our front cover. This is from the Paper Phenomenon Ladies Who Lunch collection. This is from the digital collection. I just manipulated it a little bit to get the top corner and the bottom corner in the space the size of my cover. And if you want to see how I did that, excuse me, sorry for coughing. And that is somewhere in this playlist, okay? So then we open it up. Look how pretty it looks when it sort of fans out. Look at all those beautiful papers. So we've got the pouches. It's called the Pouch-A-Lope album because we've got these pouches. All the pouches have cute little goodies in them. And we have room to add more stuff. So pouches, and then we've got our envelopes on the back, and of course you can, you know, put your photos in the envelopes, and then the different elements from the different envelopes will hold your photos in place. Look at that fashion. Of course, this is the spike and loop closure that is new with this album. This is the first time I've used it. But I really like it. It's a great way to use embellishments from collections. So again, more goodies we can pull out of here. Of course, you can put photos and photo mats right directly in here as well. Could give up shopping, but I'm no quitter. That's right. And then another spike and loop closure. Coffee lover. This one's very coffee themed because we've got our coffee house. But first coffee, and again, places to journal, places for photos. I'm not going to pull all the goodies out because I think once we've done the inserts, we'll probably have more. I'm just going to flip through. Oh, this is the one where she flips down. I love how that looks still. This is such a great page. Happiness depends on ourselves. Here's another page element. This time it's a pocket to tuck your photos behind. Love how we did the diamond butterflies there. That's a lot of fun. Beautiful. Coffee makes you happy. I don't know if it makes you happy. It makes me happy. Definitely doesn't make Gretchen happy. Oops. Is this stuck? Uh-oh. All right. This one has a little tear. I think this hat got stuck under here, and then that kind of tore this. I may have to add a little strip of something to it to fix it, but we'll see. Just don't cut your paper wrong so that you don't have that piece of paper there, and you'll be fine. All right, so then we have the teacup that holds the little page element down. I did remember. All right, so we've got another pocket. Last pocket, we did the quilting, and then here we have again that beautiful shadow. See, there she is. And then we have the element here backed so that it becomes a pocket. And then spread your wings. All right, so that's the book. So I'll be back tonight and we'll still be working on this book. So we'll just be doing inserts for the pouches. So what we'll do is we'll come up with a few different inserts that will fit inside the pouches that you can use as photo wallets. And that's what we'll be working on tonight. But I wanted to do the final assembly this afternoon so that, you know, we would definitely have that done. And then tonight I'll spend as much time as we have working on inserts, and we'll do as many inserts, you know, as I have time for. So I hope you all had a great time with this album. Thank you for joining me for it and for Scrappy Bowl. I always have so much fun with the Scrappy Bowl projects and our Scrappy Bowl celebration each year. And I will see you tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern USA time, which is in 5 hours from now. So whatever time it is where you are now, just add 5 hours and that's when I'll be back. For those of you who are overseas and are headed to dinner or headed to bed, have a wonderful evening, have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next week. Everyone else, I'll see you later. Bye now.